There was one person that said, basically, a state agency is the most pointless job. What would happen if we weren't involved and you had a seller and a buyer communicating direct?
My experience, nothing ever good comes from that.
When you pick up a new file, what's the first thing you look for?
The chain.
Where do most chains generally fall apart?
Ego.
What's the toughest truth you regularly have to tell people?
It's not going to go in the time frame that you need it to go in.
When you're emotionally involved in a deal, you're going to make decisions purely on emotion. Welcome to this week's episode, and as you well know, I'm Chris from Harrison's, and today I have Amber with me.
Hello.
Bit of background. Amber has now been with me 3 years, unfortunately or fortunately, whichever way you see it. And just giving you a little bit of background about Amber. Amber's one of those people that will literally do anything for anybody else. She doesn't always necessarily think about herself. It's always a case of she puts the clients first, people first, team. Very loyal. And I'm very grateful for her being in the team. So that just gives you a rough idea of what Amber's like. I could probably talk this whole podcast about her, but I'm not going to do it today. So, one of Amber's main roles within the business is purely being the sales progression side of things. So once the sales agreed, through to exchange of contracts. So, Amber, what's the number one thing that slows a file down for no logical reason?
Communication.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's working to the same goal.
Yep.
To get them moved.
Mm-hmm.
To get them their dream place or a change of situation, whatever it is they need. You need communication with the client, the seller or the buyer. You need it with the solicitor, mortgage advisor to know when the mortgage offer is in, and then through other agents as well if there's a chain.
Yeah. And I think, as I said, when you're looking at it, I think communication is key in every aspect of anything that we do.
100%.
And I think if you look at some agencies, it's sometimes very difficult, isn't it, to get updates and certain things. What do you reckon that the issues are around that? Why do you think it's so much of a problem?
I don't know if it's understanding on some part. Obviously, there are a lot of sales progressors that have been doing it years and years. There's people that bring in companies. Sometimes that can be a little bit harder to communicate with.
Yep.
But sometimes I do think it's understanding on certain little bits and not knowing that that could then potentially lead to an issue later on down the line.
I think one of the issues that I've had, if I go back in probably about a year or so ago when I was getting involved, is I remember having a conversation with somebody and she'd only been in the role 2 months, and it was after, as I was asking a couple of questions, she said, "I've got no idea what you're talking about." Yeah. And I went, "Are you looking after this file?" And she was like, "Oh, well, yeah, I am." I went, "Do you know what you're doing?" She went, "No, I've just been thrown into the deep end." So what made me laugh is ultimately I was then guiding her on what to do. So I think this is a key issue. And it's always an ongoing conversation at various events, the estate agents versus conveyancers. But I think estate agents have a lot to live up to, because I think there's too many inexperienced people that are actually dealing with that after sale process.
Yeah, I just had a thought as well on that. Joining this one, and the first question you asked is also don't set expectations that can't be met. Good so point. Before Christmas, I had a chain with another estate agent, and she said, "Oh, my client asked if this can be done before Christmas," and I said it's a possibility, and I emailed her back and I was just like, don't. Yep. There's no point telling your client there's a possibility, because this is not going to happen. You need to set the expectations now. That's
a really fantastic point, actually, because I've got a client now that is a very loyal client, and he'll use me for everything he does. And going back to 2020, I remember him knocking on the door, and he was getting a bit stressed because obviously his agent, and going back to, we'd just come out of COVID and the deal was agreed in July, and the actual agent said, "Oh yeah, you'll be in by September." And obviously this was at a time where mortgage offers were taking something like 12, 16 weeks to come out. That was just the mortgage offers. So that was September, then it was October, then it was November, and he come in early December. And he was knocking on the door at the point where obviously we couldn't let him in. And he was saying, "Oh, I'm expecting to complete before Christmas. It needs to happen." And I was like, absolutely no chance. I went, "You'll probably be lucky to move in January." But I said, I'm anticipating January. He went, "Well, I need it done by Christmas." And I was like, "It's not happening." And he just looked at me and I said, what's the reasons? And I won't use a few words that he used, because you can understand. And he was saying, well, my agent told me we're going to be completed by September. And I went, I've got absolutely no idea why they would have said that. And he was saying, well, they told me you were telling them that. And I went, absolutely no chance. Why would I tell them that? I said, like, I've just said to you just now, I said, you're not even moving before Christmas. He said, well, I need it done. I went, you're not moving. I went, there's nothing I can physically do to get this through. And I think this is sometimes, or the majority of the time, is having that honest conversation and telling people probably what they don't want to hear. And I think this is where agents lack. And then the default is, oh, it's them, not me.
Yeah.
So, yeah, good point.
TTF. Tell the total truth faster.
Yay, nice. What behaviour from a buyer or seller instantly tells you this is going to be painful?
I think struggling to get hold of them, if that's when you're calling back about an offer.
Yep.
Sometimes just a straight up behaviour when you are doing the offer. Like, if you tell them it's accepted and they're like, okay. Most people are genuinely happy when they get offers accepted. I understand not everyone knows everything about the situation. Some people are first-time buyers, they need help and everything like that. But too many questions surrounding, like, so if I want to pull out, can I do this, this, this and this? Just a few red flags, we'll say, that pop up.
And this, we're going to cover this a little bit later on as well, and this is why it is so important reservation agreements are enforced, but we'll touch base on that in a minute. I think one of the other things as well is when you come in and it's demanded, I need to be done by X. I think that sometimes can be a bit of a red flag that this person is just going to be driving it. And again, this could fall on us as well, is the education point around how long it's going to take. And how many times do you hear it's I need to be done by in 4 weeks, but then they go and use a solicitor that's the cheapest out there that are only working on workload. They're working on a numbers game. That for me would be an indicator that these are going to be a nightmare. Is they want their cake and sort of eat it. Like, they want it really fast, but then they want to pay pittance.
Yeah, definitely.
What's something you repeat every week that nobody listens to?
I can't give you a date of when this is going to complete because the offer was accepted 2 weeks ago.
So again, that sort of ties in with the last one. Or when I used to be in it more so, is I'll give you an update next week. Don't call me beforehand because nothing would have happened. And then by the end of the week, they're calling you saying, is there an update?
Yes.
I haven't got one yet. I think sometimes, again, going back to it, is maybe past experience with some people is they're not regularly getting updates. So they feel they have to chase, or I'll give you an update once I've got one. And then an hour later, they'll give you a call. Have you got an update?
Yeah.
What's the most underestimated part of sales progression?
In a good way or a bad way?
Let's go both. What one are you going with? I'm guessing bad way.
I was actually going to go for a good one, but I'll start with bad. Bad would be, I don't know if it's the right word, therapy. I become the therapist.
Yeah, I think half the time we're not estate agents, are we?
No.
And we're more punching bags.
Yes.
Yeah, I quite agree, yeah.
And good is when, say if something was probably going to fall through and then you manage to get it back together, or just the overall excitement for people, just the happiness of when everything finally gets to go through to the exchange part. It's a relief off everybody's shoulders. They don't have to deal with it anymore. It's just nice to see that.
And I think, as I always used to get the feeling of this, is like once it goes through, I always used to believe I was the only one that was going to be able to do it. So when you're actually then saying, it's exchange, and you can hear the delight, or more so, it's not the delight, it's more the relief. Yeah, exactly. When you pick up a new file, what's the first thing you look for?
The chain.
The chain. Yep. And what's your reasoning behind that?
Knowing what's in the chain can help set expectations. If there's a leasehold, it's likely going to take an extra 6 to 8 weeks. Getting an understanding of everything. If you've got a probate at the top, is a probate granted? If it's not granted, again, that could take another 12 weeks. Just the full understanding of everything within it, knowing who's in it and everything like that can help set expectations, know who to contact, where the possible problems are, that sort of thing.
I think also as well, it's a good point actually, because again, this is another thing that I feel that is another issue, is the bottom of the chain, and how many times have we dealt with somebody that's doing a let to buy, and obviously your and my understanding of that is on a let to buy generally, in probably 90% of deals, they have to then exchange and complete on the same day.
Oh, yeah.
So having that information, but the amount of times that agents, and again, it goes back to probably inexperienced agents dealing with certain situations like that where they're not going to know.
Or the first-time buyer being in rented.
Yep.
I've had one that had a 3-month notice period and nobody knew.
Yeah. So you're getting close to exchange of contracts and everyone thinks they're going to be moving within 2 weeks, and then the bombshell is, oh, by the way, 3 months. So yeah. I think it's a massive point, actually. It's a great point you've made, because we need to know that.
Exactly, yeah.
And again, it all goes back to communication, doesn't it? So actually understanding what everyone's time frame is.
Yeah, like we asked, even when we register people before they like go and even see a property, we always ask if they're in rented, how long is your notice period? So we have that on file. The amount of agents I've called and said, is your first time buyer living with parents or in rented? I don't know.
Yeah.
So we need to know.
Where do most change generally fall apart?
Controversial answer.
Oh, go on then.
Ego.
Yeah, I don't think it's controversial at all. I think it's to the point. But again, is it necessarily ego? Is it emotion?
A bit of both. A bit of, some people don't like to not get their own way.
Yep.
But at the same time, it is the emotion of like, everybody wants it all done. And again, like I said earlier, we're all working to the same thing. But some people just like it to go their way.
And another reason why reservation agreements are so powerful. But we'll talk about that later. But yeah, so I suppose, and it also as well, it's like the amount of conversations I've had, especially on a reservation agreement, where people come back and said, oh, I'm going to pull out if it doesn't get done by next week. Okay, that's fine, but you're going to have to pay our seller £2,000. And it just suddenly then becomes more logical than it is emotional. So I think that avoids it. But I think for me, it's, well, if I go and tell the agent that I'm going to be moving next week, and I think sometimes when you come and bring an emotion into it, and it's up there in the top 3, I still think it's probably the most stressful thing, based on my experiences and conversations that we've had with people, it is stressful.
It really is.
But again, it's been like that for 20 odd years, and it's probably not going to change for another 20 odd years.
I was speaking to somebody, one of our sellers, the other day, and they were handing the keys in to me, and they said last time we moved was back in like the 80s or something.
Yeah.
He said, I had my keys within 2 weeks.
Yeah.
He was like, I don't understand why it's just got longer and longer and longer.
I think I've talked about this a couple of times now. I can't understand it, because again, going back to 2004, it is more difficult now, yet we've got more technology now than ever. Everything, majority of everything is online, yet the process is now taking longer. I just don't understand it, but I do. But anyhow, what's the moment where you think this deal is on me to save?
Either price negotiations or dates. You get a lot of, well, I can't do that date, so if you're not going to do my date, then I'm going to pull out.
Yep.
That's most of the time, 99.9% of the time, not going to happen.
So this sort of then goes back to your ego point, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But most of the time, like if it's not my client, but it's somebody else's client, and I don't know, they've got a rental, they can't physically afford the mortgage payment and the rental within the same month, then I will have a conversation with my client and say, I understand, but think about this person. They're going to have to pay over probably $2,500, roughly, for like a first-time buyer in 1 month.
Yep.
They don't have that. They're probably 22, 23, around that age. There's just not, it's not going to happen for them. So just think about that. Can you give them an extra 2 days?
Yeah.
And maybe that'll work. But obviously, if it's my client, I will push for my client to get what they need.
Yeah. I think it's. I think that this would simplify the whole system so much that if you can be flexible, maybe it is having that conversation at the very beginning. Maybe that's something that we do need to bring in and highlighting the flexibility. I probably don't think it's going to have an impact, but at least having that sort of flexibility, personally for me, would help. Do you have anything else to add on that? Deals on me to save?
Just as well, if there's a chain again, other agents or the solicitors around, or the mortgage advisor or something like that, if they aren't getting, like the agents aren't getting the updates from their solicitors, I will get the solicitor details from them for their client, and I will call them up.
Yeah.
And I will try and get the information. I will keep doing it until I get the information.
Yeah. I think this then goes back to, again, the experience of the person that's actually dealing with that file. Is it somebody that's just been thrown in at the deep end? Or if it was somebody there that was actually driving it, that actually knew about it, then they'd probably deal with it. But how many times out of 10 would you have to intervene? Probably quite a high majority.
Yes.
So what speeds everything up? So if sellers did 3 things before listing, what would speed up the whole process instantly?
Instructing your solicitors straight
Mhm.
away
Yep.
and getting the forms filled out with them. So then when it goes sold subject to contract and the memorandum is sent, the draft contract pack can go straight across. The buyer solicitor can start working on it straight away.
Yep.
If you live in an older property,
Yep.
1930s-ish, get an electrical and a boiler check.
Mhm.
Just so then if they get that, or if they mention it later on, well, we was aware of it at the beginning and we told you, so now you can't pull out on that front
Yeah.
because of the reservation agreements.
I would probably challenge that and say that's probably across the board actually, is because again that's one of the things. It's probably not as much of an issue with newish
No.
builds, but it's always something that always crops up, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the reason why I said that old is because you're most likely going to need some sort of a rewire.
Yeah.
Or your electrical box is now not up to code and you're going to need a new one. Like something will come up
Yeah.
with either the boiler or the electrical. So definitely in that period of house, 1000% do it.
Yep.
But other periods of houses, yeah, do it. Maybe not so much the boiler. You might have a newer boiler, that sort of thing. But definitely get something.
Yep. Cool. Number 3.
Oh, them two went in together. Okay. If they're buying on, and this goes for anybody person who's buying, make sure you have the mortgage in principle, all your finances set up. Make sure you do have enough as well. Think about the solicitors, the estate agent, the surveys. Some mortgages make you pay, some don't. Think about the fact that you have money for all of them. We have had a seller before who asked if he could pay us after, because he didn't have all the money.
Miscalculated. Yeah.
Yeah. So make sure you have enough for all of it.
Yeah. I think also as well is I think some people actually work on just online calculators, don't they? And they're not always up. Well, they're not going to be up to date because it's just a quick fact find online, and this is what I earn, this is what I want to borrow.
Yeah. Like we could do a help to move appointment, half an hour conversation with our mortgage advisor just to go through all the different payments that you may possibly need to make and confirm that you do have enough to go forwards in what you're wanting.
Yeah, definitely. What's the document almost nobody prepares but always causes delays?
There's loads.
Yeah, that's fine. Let's go through them.
Probate. Just making sure everything's set up for probate. Death certificates.
Yep. We had one recently, didn't we, where it delayed the process quite a bit.
Yeah, and also not so much a document, but explaining to the estate agent that's going to be taking on your property. Even if somebody has passed away, but they previously owned the property, we need to know. Because we've had one that you were talking about where we never knew that the father owned the property, he'd passed away. It wasn't until it went sold that we had to then get a new death certificate. And another one where it turns out they owned the house together and the husband had passed away, but the husband by himself had owned a tiny little patch of land next to the house that we didn't know about. And it caused an extra 8 weeks trying to get the executor who didn't live around here down to sign all the paperwork and do his IDs. They lost the probate as well, so had to get a new one of them. And then another one recently where there was 3 people who owned the house. All 3 were dead. And it was a wife, husband, and then his father. And the people who were power of attorney executors, they didn't know the father. So I had to call the probate office for them and try and get the details and death certificate for the father and the wife.
Yep.
Because they just didn't know anything about them really, because it wasn't there available. So just getting that stuff sorted beforehand.
And I think that's sort of a rarity as well, is what a lot of people don't see, is that extra bit that you did, which we weren't getting paid any more money. It wasn't necessarily down to you to do, yet you went and done it yourself.
Yeah, they didn't know how to do it. So
Yeah. What does a good buyer look like from your side?
eager,
Yep.
ecstatic, maybe crying down the phone
Yep.
when you tell them the offer's accepted, because that's one of my favourite parts. Then just straight away, like, okay, what do I need to do? I need you to do your ID checks, the reservation agreement.
Yep.
I need solicitor details. They do the ID checks within a day. Once the reservation agreement comes over to them, they do it. They let me know straight away that they've done it. And then with solicitor details, anyone who's like, yeah, I'm happy to go with who you would recommend, that's perfect. But obviously, if people do have their own solicitors as well, get me the details as soon as you can, and they get that over straight away. Constantly, right, is there anything else I need to do right now? Is there anything that I can push to get done?
Yeah.
Just somebody who's actually all over it, communicating back with us, and genuinely is excited for the experience.
I think it even goes back to just before that, even when like somebody's viewed a property and then the next thing it's a case of, well, what do you need? Well, we need X, Y, Z, and it's over to you within 5 minutes.
Yeah,
like
definitely.
already that indicates to me that you've got somebody here that's actually serious.
Yeah, definitely.
Compared to somebody else when you ask them a question and before we know it, it's like a day or two for them to get the information back to us. So I think that's a key. But yeah, and I suppose it's that good question, isn't it? It's what do you need, or what do I need to do now? I think that's a killer point actually for me, because they're actually asking for guidance and what they need to do, rather than us telling them what they need to do. I've answered your question. What does a nightmare buyer look like?
Just turn it all the way back around. People who don't answer the phone when you're trying to get hold of them. I had one recently that nothing was being done on the file after it had been sold. Every time I called, it's okay, it's all right, everything's in hand. You keep saying this to me, but I can see that's not the truth.
Yeah.
And then the phone gets hung up on me. That's not... We need communication. As I've said, communication is key for everything.
But again, through my experience with those, it's like, right, you're hiding something.
Yeah.
There's something here that you're not telling us. And I think the view is, well, if I don't tell you and I hang up, then it looks like everything's all hunky-dory. Well, that's instant red flag.
Yeah.
Or not responding to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's the one thing buyers do that instantly adds 2 weeks? I've got a good one.
I want to hear your one.
No.
Okay. I actually can't think of one. Apart from like initially telling you that they're not going to get a survey and then just before exchange going, oh, actually I want to get like 5.
That's a very good point, actually. Yeah. So that's happened. The one thing that instantly come to mind with me was we're looking to complete in a couple of weeks' time. I can't do that. I'm on holiday.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Why I'd have somebody books a holiday is beyond me, or at least doesn't communicate that. Again, goes back to that communication part. Highlight at the very beginning. We asked you at the very beginning, is there anything we should be aware of? There's a offer form that you fill out. Why have you not put it in there? Timescales wise, why didn't you highlight this to us? So that for me instantly adds it on. Or it could be many other reasons behind that. But what's the toughest truth you regularly have to tell people?
Probably just what you said earlier. It's just not... It's not going to go in the time frame that you need it to go in.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to do everything I can for you. But at this moment in time, all I can get is, especially if there's a chain, I'm thinking of one in my mind, which is, but like all I can get at the moment is third-party information because it's like 4 properties up.
Yeah.
I try and call, I try and email. I've got other estate agents that we're emailing each other, all trying to get the same information.
And you got one in the chain that's laying it down.
Yeah, and I'm trying to do everything I can, but again, like we said earlier, I can't give you the updates because I don't have anything. So I will call you when I get it. But it's just, I think every time I say that, they get very disheartened, and I completely understand. And I want to give you information. But apart from driving halfway up north and knocking on his door, I can't get it.
And I suppose all depending on where the chain is. You might have a property that's up north that's moving down this way or whatever. But generally there's some instances where somebody local is using somebody in Manchester, and it's not easy for us to get a hold of. Like you look at the likes of online agents, they use conveyancers that are up north, and again, you just can't get any answers from it.
Even just the online agents trying to get answers from
I didn't want to name any names, but that generally, yes, it is cheap. It's cheap for a reason. You can never get an update, and the easiest way I can say it is ring their sales progression department, because you'll never get an update from them. But yeah, I think that's probably the difficult. I think also as well is I think there probably needs to be an element of understanding here, because obviously if we're not updating them, they're thinking we're not doing the job. Yeah. And I think the key thing for it is generally, until it goes through, we're not paid. So I had somebody a little while ago, I'm going back a few years actually, several years ago, where we told her that it was going to be probably around 12 weeks, and it got to 12 weeks, and she rang up and she went, it's a bit convenient, isn't it? It's taking 12 weeks. That's how long you said it's going to take, and we're still not through. And I was like, I don't understand where you're going here. Look, we're sort of managing your expectations, yet we can't control the conveyancing process. We can't control other change. We can only present the information that we've been given, but it's like they believe that we could wave a magic wand and get it done.
Yeah.
I would rather every single deal go through in 2 weeks.
Same.
It's not possible. Tell you what, it is possible, but it's there's various parts that need to make that work. But generally, as a general rule, even 12 weeks nationally, that's phenomenal at the moment. So, and we would rather it go through in 2 or 4 weeks. Trust me, because then we get paid and it's quicker, it's easier, less stressful. So we sort of alluded to reservation agreements earlier on. So if we were going to look at how many deals this month, or how many deals would a reservation agreement have saved? So if we look at the percentages roughly across the country and put it into deal terms, how many deals would a reservation agreement save?
So out of like 100 deals, nationally 1 in 3 fall through. That's around 30.
Yep.
But with a reservation agreement, we have a 94% completion rate. So that's only 6 deals falling through.
So when you're looking at that, as I said, 1 or 3, 33, something around that sort of level, you're then talking 25 to 30 deals on average you're going to be saved every 100. I think the proof's sort of in the pudding there. And I know that this is standard across the reservation agreements that we do through Gazelle, and that's all the agents now that use it. That is a figure there. 95, 90, 94% is where the general fall-throughs are. So there is power in them. What changes when both sides commit up front?
Trust.
And what do you mean by that?
Obviously, you said the word commit. They are committing to something.
Yeah.
Yes, obviously you can say when you're going to sell or purchase a house, you are committing to it, but what stake do you have in it at that point?
Yeah.
Nothing really. So signing that agreement, putting that little bit of money up front is a commitment to say, I am very invested in buying this house. There obviously are some people that still will try and get some sort of a price reduction on the property, but that's again why we have the clauses within the reservation agreement. It makes it harder to do so and helps protect against silly things that they can just say, all the doors need changing. Yeah. That's not a major improvement that needs to happen. So that's not something we can do anything with. Yeah, I think it is key. And again, I think until you've been through a situation, and I suppose when you look at it from a first-time buyer's perspective, they're not going to understand the process. And the only people that they're then going to go to is mum and dad, or people that have actually moved in the past. So there is some sort of friction between first-time buyers sometimes doing it because it's unknown, it's a cost, although I think sometimes it can be a massive saving. I'm trying to look through because I've got some good stats on this in a minute, but I think there's one issue. It's never been done that way. It's still not known within the industry. Yeah, I literally had that last week. Somebody asked me that question. I was like, thousands of agents throughout the UK use Gazelle's reservation agreements. It's not just us, we're just the only ones within our town that do. Yeah, and sometimes we get friction sometimes from solicitors as well, don't we? Because again, why do you think that is? I'm actually not too sure. A lot of the comments I get is, my solicitor says it's not legally binding, so why should I sign it? Yep. But then on the other side, it's, my solicitor says if I sign this then I'm liable for something. So which one is it? Is it legally binding or is it not? Exactly. I think for me, it's a case of, again, because it's new and it's sort of, I think the agreement sometimes it does hold conveyancers accountable, and again, I'm not tarnishing everyone with the same brush because again, it would be very ironic of me as an estate agent to say that, but I think there's some that don't want to be held to a sort of timeline. And generally, as I said, there's a timeline that's there, and if they are delaying on matters, they could be impacting their client. I think for me, there's a lack of understanding.
I think, again, going back to it as well, is when you're talking about sort of the average timeframes, I know we alluded there to 12 weeks, right? The national average is, I think last time I looked at it, it was about 156 days.
Yeah, around that.
So when you're talking 156 days, that's a lot of time for somebody to potentially change their mind.
100%.
Seller and buyer.
I've had people change their mind from a Friday to a Monday.
Well, yeah, valid. So when you're looking at those sort of time frames, that's a long time to waste your life thinking you're going to be either selling your property or buying a property for then somebody to then go, I've changed my mind.
Yeah, definitely.
Look at the one that we had last year, which was very frustrating, where again, buyer and seller met and it fell through an exchange of contracts, and they were all up for doing it until they met the buyer, and then the buyer basically said, "Oh, I don't really need to do it. I'm buying this house." And then the seller went, "Well, I might as well save myself 300 quid."
Yeah.
And lo and behold, even the advice I gave at the time, which I think they forgot, was you need to do this. And then on exchange of contracts, the person didn't even have the what's the word? They didn't even ring us to tell us they were withdrawing. They just sent their solicitor an email saying, "I'll change of circumstances." Like, that's damning.
Yeah.
Like, you're thinking you're going to be moving next week. You've spent a couple of thousand already. I think this is the other thing actually as well. When you think of most deals, conveyancers are still going to get paid up until that point. So really for them, it doesn't necessarily matter as much if it falls through because they've been paid.
Yeah, I know some do it on, I get paid on any of the work that I've done.
Yep.
Some do it on like percentages, like we've done 10%, we've done 25%, 50%, 75%.
Yep.
Once it goes past 75%, they have to pay the full amount no matter what.
Yep.
So some people do actually ask them to put it on hold until everything else is done, basically, and then they can go past that 75%. And then others are actually still no sale, no fee.
Yeah. I've been looking through the stats. If you think about, right, so yeah, most typical deals take over 120 days. The financial impact of failure, this is the average cost to a seller when a deal collapses is £1,240. And that's primarily down to legal and survey fees. So that's on. I thought it'd be higher, to be honest, but we're talking averages right across the country, right? So you've got then the psychological toll. So 57% of consumers report increased anxiety during a transaction, with 26% suffering from insomnia.
Fair enough.
The transactional trauma leads to 28% of sellers stating they are less likely to move again in the future. That's over 1 in 4 people feel that way.
I've had a lot of people say to me, I'm never moving again, never doing this again.
I said that, and I'm an estate agent, and I'm not. Chain collapse domino effect. Because most UK sellers are also buyers, a collapse at any point in the chain can derail multiple lives simultaneously. Research indicates that 54% of participants in a property chain have seen at least one deal fall through. So 1 in 2 people, is that right? Yeah, 54% have seen a deal fall through. So when I suppose when you're sort of looking at these sort of stats, if you look at sellers in Sittingbourne, from the moment the property goes onto the market to the moment they get the keys, the average time is 200 days. So that's over half a year. Well over half a year, isn't it? Yeah. Of your time trying to sell your house.
Yeah, definitely.
It's crazy. Let's have a quick look. So when we're looking at it and we're talking gazumping and gazundering, so just obviously quickly going an idea, gazumping is when a seller chooses a higher offer after accepting an offer, and gazundering is when a buyer does it the other way. They agree a figure and then they knock the figure down. So when you're looking at this prolonged window of 200 days, the uncertainty is a major deterrent. Furthermore, the lack of transparency in the system means only 2% of buyers feel they receive enough information before making an offer. So I suppose when we're going back to what we do and how we speed the process up, we get all this upfront information. How many times has a seller said, I don't need to do that?
So many times.
Yeah, we've had it recently, haven't we?
Yeah.
Where you had it with a client and I told you you've got to tell him to do it.
Yeah.
The more information up front, and this is why I feel there needs to be changing in the whole system. If I had a penny for how many times I said that. When we're looking at it, why aren't we highlighting all the issues up front? You talked about electrics and gas, right? We know it's going to come up in the transaction, right? So get it done beforehand, right? All the other information, all that information that's on there. I had somebody recently that had a major dispute with a neighbour, and she said, well, I don't want to tell them. Was it reported to police? Yeah, it was. Well, it's going to come up.
You have to.
So when we're talking about it and we're talking about upfront information, what could potentially go wrong? I know that you're trying to hide it and you don't want the deal to fall through, but if you volunteer that information at the very beginning, they're more informed. If they're making an offer, they know that information, it's less likely to fall through.
100%.
It then goes into the reservation agreement that they know that information. So if they do fall through, you're financially compensated. Yeah. Why is it so difficult?
It's not.
So I suppose when we're looking at that is, as I said, it doesn't always necessarily happen with, I suppose, a buyer from a seller's point. They're thinking the buyer's committed. Well, you never know up until exchange of contracts, yeah? And even with the other way round, a seller doesn't know that a buyer's going to change their mind and try and renegotiate later on down the line. And they can do. All right, doesn't always happen, but what is that going to do? If a buyer comes back on exchange of contract and says, I need to drop my offer by 10 grand, you've got two options, haven't you? You either swallow it, or you then spend another 120 to 200 days on the market. Then you're probably then talking a year on the market.
And I've heard it happen a lot, where people wait until literally the day before exchange, and they're like, I'll exchange tomorrow, but only if you drop by the price by like 75 grand. Yeah,
it's ridiculous. But I suppose it's also then comes back to the survey, isn't it? The survey discussion's easier to have now with buyers, isn't it? Because ultimately a survey, I need to make sure I get this right because I have been challenged on this. So if we are talking a level 2 survey, building survey about property, there's 3 gradings. The 3 gradings are 1 to 3. Yeah, 1 being okay or good, 2 it's an amber in the sense that it's going to need some work later on down the line, or 3 it's an urgent repair. But how many urgent repairs aren't actually urgent repairs?
Yeah, a lot of urgent repairs are the surveyor's not allowed to be intrusive in any way, shape or form.
Yep.
And obviously they're surveying a whole property, they're not, is it licensed to deal with electrics or a boiler or to comment on them?
Which is understandable, yeah.
So they will put it down as a 3. And it usually will say in there that we suggest that you get a electrical survey done on the property as we cannot comment on this or we cannot see the full scope of this.
Yep.
So that's why it's put down as a 3 because they cannot comment on it and whether there's a problem or not.
So again, when we're talking electrics, it goes back to what our suggestion was at the very beginning is, look, get them checked by an electrician at the very from the very beginning because if we know a surveyor's going to do it, it doesn't even matter if it was updated last year or recently, they're still going to then register it as a 3.
Yeah.
Now, a buyer reading that report is going to look at it instantly and go, oh my God, this house is falling down.
Yeah.
But they're going to highlight it to a point where they have to, because I do understand that they're going to cover themselves. But I truly believe this is what the sellers should do at the very beginning.
Yeah.
It just irons out that issue later on down the line and we can have that conversation.
Yeah, like obviously with older houses and when it's visible that the electrics need a rewire or something like that, they will put in there as well that it needs that, but they still obviously do highlight that you should go and get an electrical survey.
And the thing is as well, regulations change.
They do, yeah.
All the time. So what was valid last year probably isn't going to be valid this year. And it's going to be an upgrade in certain things. Hoping that one clarifies that one. Right, let's end that one for now. So remember, case studies. Give me a nightmare file you pulled back from the brink. No names.
No names.
Unless
Property names?
Is it? Yeah, probably. Yeah, no.
Okay. I had one that apparently, right up until the point of exchanging, nobody knew that the buyer at the bottom had a 0% deposit.
That's a good point, actually, because, again, they haven't been around for quite a while. And I remember this, haven't they? And then, obviously, suddenly we've had a couple.
Yeah. I've never seen one before. So I didn't know what to do, first of all. I called in help from you. I called in help from solicitors.
Yep.
Everything. I was like, what do I do?
But it's interesting, actually, because I was like, God, blimey, I can't remember the last time I dealt with one. And, again, when you're talking most solicitors, I think, especially with a few that we deal with at the moment, they wouldn't have dealt with them either.
No.
So, yeah. Talk to me about how you got that one back.
So you had the very bottom of the chain had a 0% deposit, and the very top of the chain was a new build company who was demanding the full 10%, 25%?
Yes, 10% it was that,
Yeah, 10%. And they was like, well, it just can't happen. Like, they have to give the 10%. And I was like, they don't have the 10% to give. Like, we need to figure it out somewhere else for that to work. Obviously, with that as well, there was our buyers. They were no mortgage. They were just cash. So they could put up the 10%, but then they're liable for that full 10% if it doesn't go through. Our sellers, again, they had to put through, I think they told me in the end, it was like 44 grand they had to put up.
Yeah, so we're not talking like minimal amounts of money.
Yeah, so they weren't prepared to put up 44 grand while other people were putting up 20.
And at the time, before obviously it got, I remember the new build company, again, they didn't really give a sort of damn, did they? Initially, It was just a case of, well, no, it needs to go through by next week. And it's like, and I think this sometimes the frustration is they're heavily targeted on getting these deals through, but they just completely forget about the whole human element with it. And when you're talking about it, 44 grand, that's a lot of money. Yeah,
definitely. And they tried saying as well, because it was 0%, that it had to be done on the same day.
Yep.
And almost everybody in the chain refused. So that's why they all had to accept the zero, like the fact that no money was coming up with it. In the end, I managed to get hold of the new build company and speak to them and get them to lower it to basically accept a 0% deposit all the way up.
Yeah.
Which was doable.
Yeah. And it went through, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And in fairness, actually, that was probably, in my time, I've had a couple of people where they've sung my praises, but I would probably say that's probably one of the best reviews or thank yous I know that we've actually had from a client.
Made me want to cry.
Yeah. But it generally was, and it was actually nice to actually be recognised, because I think half the time, it goes back to what I'm going to ask you in a minute, but I don't think half the time, and I've always said this to you, oh God, bloody he knows, you don't tell people what you do.
Yeah.
And I think half the time, if it wasn't for you, then it wouldn't have gone through. But you won't tell people that. I always tell people. But give me a miracle turnaround. One that even surprised you. You think of any of that?
I can think of one.
Go on.
But it wasn't due to solicitors or anything like that. It was going quite quickly regardless. But we had a sale that was accepted, I think it was October. And then very late November, we had a call. So this was a power of attorney one. Had a call that unfortunately the lady who owned the property had passed away. Yeah. So it therefore needed to go towards probate. Had a conversation with the buyer. They were happy to wait. They just wanted to be kept updated with everything that was going on. I looked at this yesterday, so I know the dates. The probate was submitted on the 8th of December, and it was back and granted by the 23rd of December. It's now exchanging end of the week to complete on the 6th of February.
Wicked. Good. And I think, also as well with that one, it's, you never can really prepare yourself for somebody passing away, can you really?
No,
in the deal?
No, definitely not.
Give me a moment where you were the reason the sale didn't fall through, even if the client never knew it.
Stamp duty times. Crazy. Everyone was going crazy. This one had a chain where 2 of them were ours, and then the top one was a new build. Yep. The seller at the top said, don't worry about it, I'll move out whenever not the seller at the top. So our top one that was moving into the new build said, I'll move out whenever our bottom sale was done. So our seller and the first time buyer. Got to that point, I think we was at this point 2.5 weeks away from the stamp duty deadline. Yep. His wasn't ready. Nowhere near ready, actually. And he just decides to throw the bombshell of, I'm not going to move out now, after saying that I will for like months. I want it all to tie in, and it has to go before stamp duty, otherwise I'm pulling out. I don't even remember what I did fully, but I know that with the solicitors, I was having to call the new build company and try and liaise with them directly, as well as the solicitors dealing for the top seller purchasing, I got them to send me the documents instead of their clients. Then I could print them out to know exactly what they needed to sign.
Yep.
And then they would come to me and then drive it to them. I was prepared to drive it myself all the way to Bexley Heath to get it done. But luckily they had the day off and they were willing to do it themselves. But if those contracts hadn't have got to that solicitor's office on that day, it wasn't happening.
And it's always like, again, the amount of times we hear that, if it doesn't get done, it's going to fall through. And again, you sometimes have to take it with a pinch of salt because we hear it so many times and it's just trying to G it along. But the amount of times there's some conversations that I've had and I'm thinking, oh my God, they mean this. Yeah. And it's like, it's stressful enough as it is, but it's a gamble. It's an educated gamble, I find half the time. It's because like you have to take it with a bit of seriousness, but you don't want to cause X more stress because they've been in the office crying already. So you have to try and find that balance of when do you actually tell them. And it's like a little bit of a nudge of, I need you to go and do this now, but I'm not going to tell you that this seller is serious on the point of withdrawing.
Oh, I have had to before. And it's not just, like, because they don't believe us either, of saying, like, I promise you I have we've sold multiple of this person's properties. Yep. If this is not done, they will pull out. And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, no, please listen to me. They will. I've seen it.
I've got a no-nonsense client as well where I've dealt with him since 2007 and I get on really, really well with him. And when he tells me he's going to withdraw, it's like, oh, he will. And the amount of times I've then gone to a conveyancer or I've gone to the other side and said, look, you really need to. And it's like, oh, he won't do it. I'm like, he will. He's done it with me before. Yeah. So if you don't do this, he will withdraw. I went, you can take the risk if you want. I went, but you're the one that's going to have to go and tell your client that you didn't act on what I said that you need to do. And I've got this call recorded. So if you don't, I will pass it on that you've let your client down because you ultimately have. So again, I will tell them that. Anyhow, right. So let's talk about you, Amber. You're always helping people, which I feel is a massive strength.
Thanks.
Sometimes a weakness because you're always helping people. When does that generally change the outcome?
That's a loaded question.
I added a little bit more to it.
When does that generally change the outcome? I feel like it always changes the outcome. Yeah.
Why?
Because sometimes if I didn't help, let's talk about clients, for example. If I didn't help in the situation of trying to get them the house and stepping in, could not have got the house, could have fallen through. And with our team, they might not know how to do something, so I help, show them how, and from there on out, they know how.
Yeah, I ultimately, the one key thing for me that just springs to mind is you care.
Yeah, I do. That's my word of the year.
There you go. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, but no, I genuinely do think it is. It should be another word now. I should have challenged you on that because you just do that anyway. Anyhow, your loyalty and commitment show up when chains wobble. How does that look behind the scenes?
I don't know how to answer that. I don't think just like constantly calling, emailing, trying to get the answers for people because I know what they need and when they need to be in by and defending them as well. If people are like, my seller just says no, okay, my seller has a reason.
I think also the joy and the input I would have on that is I find it frustrating because you never get stressed. I think that's...
I do.
Yeah, I have seen you before where I've had to like calm you down. But it's very rare in the nearly 3 years you've been with me that I've ever seen you stressed. So when I can see you are, then it must be serious. But generally, I think that is something that personally, when you've got somebody there on the other end of the phone, either crying or shouting at you, to have that calm. Yeah. Certainly helps. What's something in sales progression so ridiculous it makes you laugh?
The word cot. I remember when I first received an email saying we have to submit our cot. And I looked at you and I was like, why the hell are they talking about a cot? Yeah. There's no babies involved in this. I don't understand what a cot is.
It's actually a really good point because, again, this is what we try to do now throughout us as an estate agency lingo. Like, we want to try and remove it all. Like... vendor, like for me, not everybody knows what a vendor is. Just sell it as it is, seller. Like, I don't know why we sometimes have to this. I don't know, is it like a moral high ground? We have to be above people. That's why we say it. Like, for me, just simplify the whole process. The easier you can simplify it, the easier it is. And I think that sometimes when you've got conveyancers then talking that with you, it's like, well, just say it as it is.
Yeah,
like, it would make it a lot easier.
I say things wrong sometimes, especially when, so there's somebody in the chain that's willing to break the chain and move into rented accommodation to allow the bottom half to go through and then the top half will go through later. I sometimes just go to my clients, oh yeah, they're willing to break the chain. Instantly. They're, oh my God, what does that mean? Does that mean it's going to fall through? And I forget that people don't understand the wording. And I should not just say break the chain because that sounds bad.
You're spot on with that. But how many people say that and don't do it?
Yeah.
We won't talk that one.
Yeah.
What belief did you have starting out that your experience has completely changed?
I didn't have a belief.
Okay.
The only house sale that I really was like involved in was when my mum moved back in 2020 and she actually used Harrison's.
Did she? I never knew that. You never told me that.
I have. Because
Clearly
it was the white
Was
and
I
green
dealing with
boards. No, I think it was Ryan. But all I remember was Ryan coming round to do the valuation, which is as I knew it back then.
We don't use that word.
No. My mum telling me all the time to clean my room because my room was disgusting, so everything went into a wardrobe. And then we were picking up the keys.
That's it.
I don't remember anything else, and that's the only house sale that I've been like old enough to remember. Like my grandparents have moved a couple of times, and all I know is that they just got in a van and drove down.
Can you remember what? So going into it, going back nearly 3 years ago. So what was your views of what a state agency was? Because I've always said it, and I think sometimes like Selling Sunset and these programs like that paint a completely different picture about what the housing market is all about, especially in the UK.
I was going to say there's nothing that glamorises the UK selling house experience, is there? Because I don't actually think you can.
No.
There's no way that you can. Some people have easy moves. I personally had an easy move. I was buying as a first-time buyer from a company who had bought the house off of auction. They wanted it gone super quick. They wanted it done within 4 weeks. My partner's a solicitor. He got his company to do it. Obviously, he can't do it himself. And it was done within 4 weeks. No problems, nothing. Perfect.
Yeah.
So it can be really, really easy for people.
I think when you're looking at it, okay, there's only two parties involved.
Exactly.
The company want it gone and you want your house. So when you've got two people there that are aligned with, we both want to get it done as soon as possible, that's where the whole process becomes easy. I suppose then it's when chains come involved and...
Yeah, but I think I just thought it was, you go and do viewings. I think before I came into it, I genuinely thought that's what it was about. You go and do viewings, and I had an understanding that there was people who dealt with offers and things like that, but I definitely didn't know that you had to deal with it all the way through to completion. Didn't know that was a thing. And obviously I knew that people went to houses to value them.
I'm going off tangent here now. So I see something the other day. It was a comment on one of the gossip boards, and there was one person that said basically a state agency is the most pointless job.
Yeah.
What would your view be to that? So I suppose when we look at it is, what would happen if we weren't involved and you had a seller and a buyer communicating direct?
My experience, nothing ever good comes from that.
90% fall through?
Yes. Or you get... I've had one recently where I did not know that seller and buyer were communicating.
Yeah.
And then suddenly seller calls me up and he's like, the buyer's made me go and get building regulations for all the bathrooms, blah, blah. And I was like, well, how has he done that? So, oh, we have each other's phone numbers. And I was like, well, if you had have called me beforehand and told me this, I would have told you not to do that.
Yeah. And the sellers of that one were getting quite stressed, weren't they? Because
Very
all the pressure they were getting put on by the buyer, and
exactly.
it wasn't needed. It was just to benefit him because of his future plans and what he wanted to do with the property.
Exactly. And usually, if I'm there, I'm the one in the middle. I get the pressure, and unless it's very, very needed to go across the other way, I keep it and then help.
Yeah. Can you imagine that situation we were just talking about just a minute ago? If you had somebody thinking of moving next week, and the next thing you know, then they're saying, "Oh, I can't do next week. I'm going on holiday." Can you imagine the sort of anger that would cause? Or can you imagine then a buyer then coming back and saying, "Oh, I've got 0% deposit."
Yeah.
Who's then going to deal with it? Because they're going to go to their conveyancer. The conveyancer is going to say, "Oh no, you shouldn't do that." So if we weren't involved, so it's pointless, isn't it? Really, our industry.
Yeah, very pointless. And I've had many
Sarcasm
sellers
coming back
before where the constant calls, texts, emails that we get,
Yeah.
the buyer then, or seller, whatever, ends up then getting them. And then that causes probably more of the insomnia that you was talking about earlier.
Well, yeah, when you're looking back at that, and that's with agents involved, and don't get me wrong, like we'll go back to that sort of scenario we were talking about earlier, where agents can't have those upfront, honest conversations. Yes, it's going to cause stress. So when we are the bridge between the two, we're not. When you're looking at professions, when you're trying to then calm people down, that's not actually a estate agency, is it? That's more of a counsellor.
Yeah.
Or a teacher,
Yeah,
or something
but
along those lines.
The other part as well is, I don't know about other estate agencies, but we have been trained with negotiation. So if you was trying to get 450 for your house, can you negotiate the same way that I can to get you that money or more? Or are you going to accept an offer at 435 and say, you know, it was close enough?
And I suppose at the end of the day, and this is sometimes what I've heard about, again, the online agencies, when, again, there's a lot of people that are positive about what the online agencies done. Oh, yeah, I've sold it within a few days. Have you sold it at the highest possible price? Because that's the key question for me,
definitely.
is, yeah, they might have sold it, but all they are is I'm going to pass this offer on to you. You can do it on the portal. There's no effective negotiation in it. So, yeah, you can sell it within 3 days. I often think sometimes if you're selling it that quickly, you've probably undersold it.
And yeah, unless it's a high amount above the asking price.
And it also then goes back to emotion and logic. When you're emotionally involved in the deal, you're going to make decisions purely on emotion.
Yeah, and like you've even said, you did a viewing once at one of your houses, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, I was an actual client. Yeah, I should never have been dealing with my house.
No, and you said that you pointed out all of the bad things to do with your house.
Yep, and again, it's just one of those that even though I wouldn't have done that selling somebody's house, but ultimately there are certain things there that I look at that would potentially impact the sale later on. So if there is something like we discussed earlier, I will highlight it to a potential buyer.
Yeah,
but
of course.
with me, I was highlighting just like skirting boards and things like that needed doing, and it's like, well, why was I doing that? I didn't need to be doing it.
Yeah.
Took the property off the market for the buyer. And ultimately, the buyer then went and sold because they weren't under offer at the time, with something that we've never really advised.
No.
Some certain situations, yes. That's also another interesting point, actually, because how many people, we had one yesterday, Ben told me about it, again, somebody, oh, I'm under offer, I'll take my house off the market. Great, you've got a complete chain. No, they're trying to sell their house.
There's a lot more recently that come up. We ourselves do have a couple, but we always go into it with, we don't advise this.
Yeah, it's your decision.
It's your decision, and we will do what you say.
Yeah. But ultimately, there is sort of, again, like, for instance, there may be a property there that has been on the market for a little while, or it's a bit unique. But it all then depends on the seller's circumstances. If a seller then needs to be in April, and they're taking it off the market for somebody that's not in a position to proceed, they're not moving in April.
No.
They're probably moving in August.
Yeah.
So it's always subject to that. But yeah, a lot of agents are doing it now. And I know what it is. I reckon the agent's probably doing it just to encourage the offer so they don't lose the sale.
Probably.
Or lose the property. What's a moment where you stayed calm externally, but you were screaming internally?
I would say the whole month of April in March, was it January, February, March? Yeah, I'm not good with my months, I'm sorry. Right. The whole month of March during stamp duty.
Yeah.
the whole month. Because I'm pretty sure I sat out the back for the entire month, all day, every day, and all I did was sales progression. And yeah, I used to just come out to speak to people.
How many times did you get, I need to get it done, otherwise we can't move because I'm going to have to get stamp duty?
About 24 hours of the day.
Yeah, I was glad you were dealing with that. Although I did take a few files off your hands, didn't I? But you did the majority. What's the nicest thing a buyer or seller has ever said to you?
I knew you said his name then. The one we was on about earlier. I have to. The one we was on about earlier, he got me a little present that says, continue being who you are. And then wrote in a little card saying that, like, I was amazing and that he really thinks that what I do is great.
Yep.
And then I had another one where I had a very tumultuous, is that the word? Relationship
New word
with
for
this
me.
client. We had some arguments, definitely.
Yep.
Probably one of the best reviews I've ever got.
Debates.
Debates.
Or was it an
yes.
argument? Which one?
We'll go with debates.
Yep. Cool.
But yeah, best review. I've probably capital letters, exclamation. He told me I deserve a raise.
Tumbleweed. Could do tumbleweed there to hear going along there. What actually drives you when you're juggling 20, 30, 40 plus properties at once?
I want to help people. That's the driving force. I like it when people are happy at the end.
Yep.
I want to help people move, and as I said, it's not always just about, oh, I want a new nice house. Some people have to move.
So what does that mean to you?
It makes me feel good to help people.
Why?
I don't know. I like the happiness in their voice. Like when people cry with happiness, not with stress. Stress one, that hurts.
Yep.
But cry with happiness, like with accepting offers or when it comes to completion. And you can tell who's like really grateful for your help. And it feels good to know that I've been able to help them get that, and maybe without me they might not have.
Yeah, you made a difference.
Yeah.
Right, it's quick fire round. You're not allowed to think on this.
Okay.
You've just got to give me what you think.
Yeah.
Right. Slow solicitor or slow lender?
Slow solicitor.
Buy a wobble or sell a meltdown?
Sell a meltdown.
Chain of 2 or chain of 7?
2. Obviously.
Weekly updates or daily firefighting?
Weekly updates.
Chasing paperwork or chasing people?
Paperwork.
One huge drama or 10 small irritations?
One huge drama.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Buyers who panic early or buyers who panic late?
Panic early.
Pushy solicitor or passive solicitor? That's a good one.
Passive.
Oh, really? Oh, I'd like a pushy solicitor.
It depends in what way.
They want to get the deal over the line.
Okay, well, if that's... I wasn't reading it that way, so yeah, pushy
No, you
solicitor.
want to go with passive. That's your choice. But that's fine. Why passive, actually? I know these are quick fire.
Sometimes pushy means rude and telling me that I should be dealing with things instead.
Yeah,
Maybe that was more of an ego side, me saying passive then.
Yeah, I understand that. Friday afternoon urgency or Monday morning chaos?
Friday afternoon, because I always... Not always, but I also work Saturdays, so Friday doesn't really mean Friday to me.
Nice. Speed or certainty?
Certainty.
That's a good one, isn't it? Being right or being appreciated?
I do like being right. Being appreciated.
Would it shock you if I said being appreciated rather than being right?
Yes.
Yeah, that is my answer as well. Fixing somebody else's mess or preventing one happening?
Preventing.
Calm chain or interesting chain? Don't know why that question's in there, but...
I prefer a calm, but sometimes interesting is... throws a little spanner in the works, doesn't it?
Cash buyer who's slow or mortgage buyer who's proactive?
Mortgage buyer who's proactive
Yeah,
every day.
good point. No chain or clean chain, but difficult personalities?
No chain.
Search delays or inquiry delays?
Inquiry delays.
Buyer's broker calling you or buyer's mum calling you?
I'd prefer neither. Broker.
Seller who over-explains or seller who explains nothing?
Over-explains.
Solicitor who writes essays or solicitor who writes one-liners?
Essays.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, I like one-liners.
No, I hate
Straight
it when...
to the point.
Have you got searches?
Yeah, fair.
No.
Yeah.
When are they expected?
Yeah, as long as the one-liners are informative.
Yeah, no, sometimes they're just one word.
Yeah. We need to complete ASAP or we're in no rush.
ASAP.
Buyer who sends 20 emails or buyer who sends none?
None.
Chasing agents or chasing law firms?
Agents.
Buyer wanting daily updates or seller wanting daily updates?
Seller.
I'd probably go with buyer.
I've
But
almost...
that would be me. Because a buyer, I feel like, probably wouldn't have a clue what they're doing, and the seller actually trusts you, so they don't need the updates.
Yeah, but if they're wanting daily updates, I have the relationship with the seller to say, no,
Yeah, fair enough.
I don't have daily updates.
A complaint chain or a dramatic one that ends well?
Dramatic that ends well.
Yeah. Mortgage offer delays or proof of funds drama?
Mortgage offer delays.
Let's go on that, because I think that's a good point to go. When you're talking about proof of funds dramas, right, this is something that's continuously coming up over and over and over and over and again, right at the very last hurdle, isn't it? Mm-hmm. What are they?
Proof of funds is where it's proof to find out where your funds come from, but then you also have proof of funds and source of funds.
Yeah.
So source is the tracking all the way back. So say you got a gift from your mum. Mm-hmm. Where did your mum get the money from?
Because this all then goes back to money laundering regulations,
exactly,
doesn't it?
yeah. So proof of funds is just knowing like that you have it there in your account. It's been in there for a while. Source is to find out exactly where it's come from and make sure it's not come from something dodgy.
Yeah.
Without them, usually going back about 12 months, you're not buying the house.
I suppose the amount of times as well is like I've spoken to a seller or a buyer, and again they don't understand, because the conveyancer, in my opinion, has just gone and said, right, we need X, Y and Z. And I think sometimes it can come across as either intrusive or non-trusting, and you're being treated like a criminal.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes when there are some highly, what's the word I'm looking for? They're at a certain level that you don't have the right to question me. And I think sometimes it's a case of, well, look, it has to be done, right? You've got nothing to worry about. Just do it. Yeah. Don't feel like you're being treated like a criminal.
Everybody has to do the same.
Buyer changing solicitor or seller changing solicitor?
Seller.
Being blamed unfairly or not getting credit for fixing it?
I would prefer to not get credit than be blamed.
Unfairly.
Yep.
Easy file that's boring or difficult one that's satisfying?
Difficult and satisfying.
Chain collapsing early or chain collapsing late?
Early.
Buyers who cry or buyers who shout?
Cry.
Sellers who cry or sellers who shout?
Cry.
Miracle last minute save or smooth 12-week sale?
I'd always prefer a smooth 12-week sale.
I would, but I do love the last minute sales.
I know I do, yeah.
But I don't like them at the time. Being a hero, which is the whole point, being a hero or being the one who holds it together?
Holds it together.
Hero. First time buyer chain or upsize a chain?
First time buyer.
Estate agent who helps too much or agent who doesn't help at all?
Helps too much.
Solicitor who blames everyone or solicitor who blames no one?
Blames no one.
Calls or emails?
I love an email over a call.
I'm a call. Old school.
Yeah.
Millennial. 15 files that behave or 5 files all explode at once?
15 files that behave every day.
Silly question, that one. Someone chasing you every hour or nobody replying when you chase?
Getting chased every hour.
Completing early or completing exactly on target day?
Oh, whenever. Completing early.
Early, yeah. Missing search or missing ID?
Missing ID.
Yeah, fine. I'm just overthinking that one. Buyer's friend who's a solicitor or seller's friend who is a property expert?
Seller's friend who's a property expert.
I would say friend who's a solicitor.
No, I wouldn't.
Because the seller's always going to go to that expert, even though they're paying us to do the job. But the friend who's a solicitor is probably going to be more.
If you're talking about only in sales progression part, then seller's friend who's a property expert. Because a seller's part isn't as difficult as a buyer's part. The seller has to answer inquiries and that's it. Mm-hmm. Really.
Being ignored or being overwhelmed?
I'd prefer to be overwhelmed.
Zero chain or chain with motivated people?
Zero chain.
Anxious but honest buyer or calm but evasive buyer?
Anxious but honest.
Moving goalposts or total silence? Ooh.
Moving goalposts.
Clean completion day or chaotic one that ends well?
Clean.
Being everyone's therapist or everyone's problem solver?
I'm both anyways.
You are? Which one would you pick if you had to pick one?
Problem solver. Sale
that needs hand holding or a sale that runs itself but no one appreciates you?
Oh.
You've had a hand holding one that didn't appreciate you recently.
I have, yeah.
Well, you probably had several of them.
I do like a hand holding one.
Mm-hmm. Satisfaction of a smooth sale or thrill of a rescue job?
I'd always prefer a smooth.
Yeah, I love the rescue job. Maybe not now. I used to.
I like a sprinkle of a rescue job, but most of them to be smooth.
Perfect. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.